This is Dolynny TV, and ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of Edmonton Oilers discussion here on the channel this fine Saturday morning, which is supposed to be like 20 degrees here in southern Alberta. A good start to May, I must say, especially previewing the May long weekend coming up right away here in no time at all. However, Bakersfield Condors are still in the playoffs at the current moment, down 3-1 after last night's defeat, so now you kind of have to sit here and realize maybe this is coming to an end a little bit quicker than any Condors fan and any Oilers fan could have hoped for. But the one positive, our new man in charge, the president of hockey operations and general manager Ken Holland, is down there checking them out. And this serves a lot of great purposes if you're the Edmonton Oilers. If you're Ken Holland, this really allows yourself a chance to, the best way to put it, I guess, would be get ahead. This really gives you a good chance to get ahead and get the job done earlier than anticipated. And what I mean by that, it's going to be important to get as many looks as at the prospect pool as possible. Sorry, I'm very tired this morning, but you got to go out there and you got to get look 1, look 2, look 3, look 4, look 5. And obviously, yes, you have the rookie skate right after the draft or whatever, a few weeks after the draft. Then you have the August camp, and then you have how they kind of do the camp simultaneous or just before main camp. And then you know how it goes. They play a couple games and all that. And of course, during the summer camp, you have the rookies play against themselves for the Joy Moss Cup, I believe it is. So you know where I'm going with that. There's a lot that can be done with Ken Holland and the prospect pool at this point, and this is a very good chance to go down to Bakersfield this weekend and see him there as Oilers fans and allow himself to see these kids play, see the team play. And I mean, yeah, sure, okay, you can talk about the kids, but don't forget Gambardella, Curry, those kind of guys. Those are mid-20s guys that are also vying for bottom 6 roles in this lineup next season when it comes to the Edmonton Oilers. So to sit here and outcast those guys wouldn't exactly be fair. And really, that's huge, right? Is you get to evaluate them now, once more. 4 evaluation periods minimum this off season for Ken Holland when it comes to anyone that's on the Condors this, playoff run right now, and maybe then trickle in another guy like Dmitry Samorukov if something ends up happening or not. Who knows? Do they need another defenseman? Probably not, but you get where I'm going with that. So what does that all lead to? That all leads to the Oilers being able to, under Ken Holland, start the roster building task now. Right? You can start those evaluations. You can start shaping your ideas of what you want, where you want to go as a roster next year. That's why I mentioned Curry and Gambardella are those 2 guys you're going to count on to be big parts of your bottom 6, or are they going to be guys that you just kind of, we'll have them available when we need them kind of deal, or we'll have one or the other kind of thing. That's the thing. You get to see Ken Holland evaluate and make those decisions now rather than having to wait till main camp when he hasn't necessarily seen those guys skating all summer and then go and try and figure out what he's going to do with them, right? So now you get him, his first impression was last night, now you get a second impression tonight, hopefully. And then you get him really involved in the process of building next year's roster. If you're Bob Nicholson, obviously this trip is probably a Bob Nicholson, Ken Holland brain trust directed thing, but either way, it's a very good idea to have him down there right now. It'd be kind of bad of the Oilers not to have their new GM, president of hockey operations, down there, but you understand where I'm going with that, is there's more than just photo ops, optics to it. There is a lot of positive that can be gained from being down there in Bakersfield, and this is my next key point here. I actually am trying to write out my points a little bit more so as I'm a little bit more clear in my thoughts. The next key point here is you get to identify who to follow and further evaluate at every step this offseason. So I've kind of mentioned that, right? There's the young guys. but you can really identify who you want, not necessarily for the roster, but who you want on Bakersfield next year, who goes back to junior next year, right? Who all goes to that, and this is exactly where it starts to work. Obviously, there's only a couple of junior eligible guys, and I don't think Ryan McLeod or Evan Bouchard are going back to junior next season, so I don't even need to worry about that per se, but you understand where I'm going, right? From that basic level of hockey operation to who's going to make up the Bakersfield Condors next year, to who's going to, actually I'm missing the Wichita Thunder down there in the ECHL, and then who's going to make up the Edmonton Oilers roster. You get to split them into those streams and then identify who to follow during the off season. You don't have to, if you're Ken Holland, I don't think you as the POHO as well as general manager have to follow absolutely every single prospect. You've got guys to do that for you. You've got a team to do that for you. But as the POHO and GM, you have to have, well, a keen eye on everything, but you also have to have your main interests on how you're going to build your roster, right? You're already thinking about building your roster now if you're Ken Holland this weekend, but now you have to find out who to follow to maybe change your mind a little bit. And that's the tough part for the Oilers right now, because the big part you'd want is you'd want to know, as Ken Holland right now, if all could be well in the world, you'd be watching Jesse Puljujärvi and Kailer Yamamoto in the lineup for the Bakersfield Condors in the playoffs. Maybe a little bit different of a result given what a healthy Yamo and a healthy Jesse Puljujärvi can do for the Edmonton Oilers and, of course, the Bakersfield Condors. But Ken Holland doesn't get those chances, and that's as unfortunate for Ken Holland as it is for those two young guys, because realistically, the less time they get to be evaluated, I think the more likelihood they end up getting traded in a move to ship out a guy like Lucic for some kind of value in return, if you know where I'm going. Not necessarily maybe having to sign a free agent, maybe just bringing in somebody on a $2-3 million contract that's a budget deal that gets the job done. That's a long ways away, but you see what I mean, right? You got to identify who to follow and who to further evaluate, but if you can't do that with Yamo and Puljujärvi, there's a lot of hurt and roster space when you come to think of the Oilers from the start of this year, right? That's two of our top four wingers from the start of this year, and where'd they go? Where are they now, kind of deal. And for Ken Holland, I think my last point I'm really impressed by, I already touched on it with the Bob Nicholson Ken Holland Brain Trust comment, is that Ken Holland is going out there and getting his hands dirty early. Going out there to Bakersfield, talking to the Oilers TV media, talking to everybody he can. And obviously the Bakersfield Condors are owned by the Oilers Entertainment Group, so you want to get a sense of what's going on down there and what's kind of taken shape when it comes to the Condors, and not necessarily on a full-on on-ice product shape, but as well as the team down there, right? Obviously, Jay Woodcroft, meeting with him, getting to know him is going to be very important, because I can push this line of attack right now. Depending on what Ken Holland sees in Jay Woodcroft, we might just have Todd McLellan 2.0 back behind the bench, right? Obviously, Todd McLellan was there at the start of the year. His assistant, Jay Woodcroft, from previous years went down to Bakersfield. Now do you see the old guard kind of return with a different look in Jay Woodcroft under Ken Holland? I'm not sure, but that is an interesting perspective for sure. And one I don't think has been mentioned too much is the fact that Ken Holland gets to hopefully spend a little bit of one-on-one time with Jay Woodcroft and almost go through that informal coaching kind of resume, experience, interview kind of deal. I don't want to use the word interview because I don't want to push agendas that aren't there per se, but it's a chance for Ken Holland, like I said, to get his hands dirty early. He's been in for no more than a week at this point. It's a good chance to keep those hands in the mud and keep going as a, well, full-time general manager and president of hockey operations, not in Detroit now, but in Edmonton with the Oilers, and hopefully lead to good things for our Oilers, well, in the 1920 season. We're talking playoffs in 1920, I think is the line, isn't it? Well, let's go for it, guys. I'm Tyson, this is Dolynny TV. As always, make sure to, hey, comment down below, give me your thoughts, let me know what you're thinking after this video, and I will catch you guys, as always, in the next one.